In this webinar, we're going to cover what is the meaning of sect, malefics, benefics, and Mercury. So we'll look at what essential dignity is. So one of the ways that I describe sect is we have, as it's a form of planetary dignity. So we have essential dignity, which most of us will be very familiar with. So that's the idea that a planet is able to function well in a sign that it rules or is exalted in, or less able to function well in a sign that it might be in its detriment or fall. I'm sure most of you are familiar with those ideas and concepts. We also have accidental dignity, which is something that's commonly used too. So the idea is that maybe a planet is more strong in a first house, fourth house, seventh house, etc. A planet might be less strong in a succedent house, or even less strong or a little bit weaker in a cadent house. So many of us are familiar with those kind of ideas, and that's referred to as accidental dignity. I like to conceptualize the idea of sect as hemispherical dignity. And hemispherical dignity is the idea that some planets have more or less able to, either help or hinder you as determined by the position of the sun. So if the sun is above the horizon, it will suggest some things. And if the sun is below the horizon, it'll suggest others. So this will describe primarily the qualitative nature of our benefics, Jupiter and Venus, and our malefics, Mars and Saturn. So let's have a little bit of a look at what that may look like. So this is the event charts for this talk today. So I've set our first chart as the 16th of May 2021 at 8 p.m. New York time. This was a fantastic example because we've got one of the first questions that gets asked when dealing with sect, and that is, what if I'm born at sunset or sunrise? And so that puts the sun in that grey area. That grey area in the, how we define night and day. So in this particular example, you can see that at New York, just, pretty much now, the descending point there is 25 degrees of Taurus, and the sun is at 26. So it's pretty much right on the cusp of going underneath the horizon. So if you want to get really Virgo or technical about this, it is a day chart. However, at nighttime, the sun is only going to be decreasing in light. So if you're presented with a chart, or you have a chart that looks like this, you might be, it's a bit of a gray area. Some charts may act very much, I'm still in the day sect, and then other charts will act a little bit more like nighttime charts. Now, the reverse is true with sunrise. So if somebody's sun is hovering around the ascending line, but still technically higher in degrees than the ascendant, aka lower than the ascendant or underneath the horizon there, depending on, I guess, an orb, it will vary. I would look at it as the sun is only increasing in light and getting stronger. So the chart may behave more as a daytime chart. But otherwise, for all intents and purposes, if the sun is above the horizon, we are looking at a day or a diurnal chart. And if the sun is below the horizon, it will be a night chart. But in New York now, I guess I'm not there, so I don't know exactly what level of light you would have at the present moment. So that might be something that would determine your decision in deciphering whether it was a day or night chart. Now, if we took, if this event was happening in the middle of winter for you in the Northern Hemisphere, then that would sort of, be no question. So sometimes you have to take the location and the season into account as well. So here in Australia, the opposite is true. The sun there at 26 degrees of Taurus is well above the ascending and descending line. So as we progress through this webinar, it'll all be above the horizon. So, there are many, so many other technical considerations to do with Sect. And that's something I'd love to explore with you at another time. Today, my main intention is to keep things perhaps more at a philosophical or conceptual level, so you can take some of these ideas around night and day and marinate them. I know it's totally Jupiter and Pisces, I know, and hopefully that might help to deepen and broaden your philosophical perspectives on what Sect is and how to work with it with clients in a more constructive manner. So that's the main sort of thrust of the talk today, is to look at it as a form of planetary dignity and how we can expand in our horizons with that. Okay, so now we've identified whether the sun is either above or below the horizon in a birth chart. We're going to look at, a little bit more of the definition and the meaning. I'm sure so many of you already either know about Sect or know a little bit about Sect. So I'm not going to kind of break down technical components too much today. We're just going to be looking at, is the sun above, is the sun below, and just really explore the differentiation between day and night. So Sect as a form of planetary dignity. So whenever I look at some of these really old school ancient words, I think maybe it's speaking a little bit to my own Gemini rising here and my own Mercury in Gemini, but I really like to have an understanding of what the words actually mean, because history does change the meaning of the words. And so when we can look at how meaning of words have changed through time, that in itself can give us so many things to sort of consider about how do we maybe language the term of Sect that might feel a little bit maybe more inclusive or more broader or wider than just this kind of idea of Sect. And depending on your accent, you have to be careful sometimes how you say that. So it might get taken a little bit differently. So the term Sect does derive from an ancient Greek term called horesis. And that was originally used to mean taking or choosing. And this so much, I don't follow basketball, but this idea really did remind me of the NBA playoffs, where I think there's this protocol where maybe at the end of the season, they have to choose the best of 7 players. And we're kind of like working with the best of 7 planets. So the idea of Sect felt a little bit like that to me. Another sort of etymology of the word Sect was to think about it as a planetary school of thought. Now, I found this was a really broadening of the term Sect, because if you think about what a school of thought is, it's basically the perspective of a group of people who share common characteristics. This might be common characteristics of opinions, of outlooks, of philosophies or beliefs. It could also include ideas around social ideals, the arts, or collective movements.